We're sharing a microphone, John.
Cool. Oh, you guys, because you're brothers. That's cute.
That's nice, yeah.
First of all, I just need to say congratulations to you guys on such an amazing first season. I don't think that I have fallen in love with characters so quickly in such a long time. So truly, let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, for our amazing brother co-creators, can you kind of just give us a little bit of the backstory of the inspiration for this and why Kaitlin is the perfect choice for the Mick?
It had been kicking around in our head for a long time, actually. We'd pitched it to some people who didn't like the idea. It was originally conceived with a man in the main role. It was kind of Jimmy was the lead, and the Mick was the sidekick. And we did some other failed shows, and we kept coming back to this one, and it was just something that we talked about for 2 years. And when we switched it to Mickey in the lead role, it really started clicking for us. And you know, we thought of who's the funniest woman we know, and we knew Kaitlin from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and we just kind of wrote it with her in mind, having no illusions that we'd get her, and then we tricked her into doing it. And here we are.
I just kind of came to. I don't really know what's going on.
Kaitlin, I was going to say, so you are now balancing both the Mick with Always Sunny. What has that process been like for you, and was that really important for you to be able to still be a part of both shows?
Oh yeah, I wasn't going to leave Sunny, but it just so happened that this sort of came along at a time where Sunny was doing a renegotiation for another couple of years, and you know, I'm only acting on that show, and we only do 10 episodes a season, so it's like a 2-month commitment out of the year for me. So I just do that in the spring and this in the fall.
Scott, you wear so many different hats on this show. I understand that you were first a writer on the show, and then the brothers came to you and were like, hey, let's put you in front of the camera. What was that conversation like?
Well, I'm just processing now that I'm the only person that brought the beer on stage, so I'm gonna.
No, mine's on the
step
floor.
off.
I have mine. It's on the floor.
I just
you
knew
do?
people would be taking pictures, so it looks like I'm not holding
Yeah.
a beer.
All right, can we just go?
He's
from
new
the,
to this.
Can,
He's
can,
new to
yeah,
this.
can we go from the top?
I mean, you can
we
pass
just
it
go
to
from the
me
top?
if you'd like, but...
That conversation, you know, I just lucked out.
Conversation is generous. It was more like, hey man, you're going to audition for this role tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's basically how it went, and then I went in for the audition, and Kaitlin said, you can do these 8 lines exactly like this. If you do what I say, this will all work out.
Never happened. This is what I said. Say it like this, and then I just did it for him, and then I sent him home with a video to practice, right?
Yes. Yeah, Jack, the 7-year-old, and I have a very similar acting process, which is we see the scene, and then we say to Kaitlin, how do we make this funny?
And I just do it for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were writing the show, and there was an actor who played Jimmy in the original pilot who got pulled away to do something else. And so as we started writing through the summer, we knew that we had to recast Jimmy, and one of the first weekends, every writer got some homework to go away, and my homework was to write some audition sides for Jimmy. And so I went home and wrote 5 sides, or 5 scenes rather, and then handed them to the brothers, and then those went out about town, and a month later, people were coming in to audition and stuff, and the guy said, would you ever want to audition? And I said, absolutely not, and I freaked out. I went to the bathroom, and one of our other supervising producers, Brian, came into the bathroom and said, you should definitely audition, and I did, and then a month later I became Jimmy.
Well, a month later he became Jimmy, but Dave and I knew he was going to get the role, and then he thought he had blown his audition, and so we called him and we were like, hey man, let's go out, let's go get a drink, and like, let's talk about what happened today. And we just decided, like, let's fucking ruin him for hours before we tell him. And so we just all went out drinking for a little while, and we were like, hey Scott, if this Jimmy thing doesn't work out, because it's a long shot, like, is there any other guest star you want to play? And we were like pitching like these 3-line roles, and he was just like, yeah, that could be cool, I guess. And
That's not true. That's not true.
I think finally we told him, like, well, you can't do those because you're going to play Jimmy. And then he cried, and then he started swinging his fists at people.
I'm a crier and a fighter. I'm a crier and a fighter.
Yeah. But no, it's truly the best thing that ever happened to our show, because we went through so many actors. We couldn't even cast the role in the pilot until the day before we started shooting, and we knew that was just going to be a one-day favor, and we'd have to recast it. And then we saw like hundreds of actors, and Scott was the only one who every time we were just like, oh, this guy's actually really good at this.
I mean, even after just meeting with him to write, I was like, why isn't this guy playing Jimmy? And they were like, I don't know. Just sort of went from there.
He's off-putting to us. I don't know.
He's off-putting, but so is Jimmy, right?
Yeah, I think that's why.
Well, Jimmy and the Mick have such an interesting dynamic. Kaitlin and Scott, how did you guys find that off-screen chemistry? Did you guys go out to dinner? How were you bonding together in order to play that on screen?
She kicked me in the dick, and I didn't go away.
Yeah, and then I was like, ooh, this could work, and we did like 15 more times.
Yeah, 15 more kicks, no cup.
It's never ending. It'll happen at some point during this panel.
Do it. Anyways. Dave and John, I've got to commend you as we're still talking about casting right now. Most of the time on comedies, I end up hating the children just a little bit, and I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, me too.
But the great thing about the Pemberton kids is it's okay to hate them a little because they're little dicks. Except for, of course, Ben. But what was
He's a dick in real life, though.
But you guys really lucked out with the kids. Can you talk to me about casting them and finding these perfect fits?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start from the top. Sabrina was probably the toughest one to cast. We saw so many girls, and it was kind of painful to watch. We'd had these girls come in to read with Kaitlin, and she'd just steamroll these 17-year-old girls. They'd walk out of there with rosacea flashes. And Sophia, who's so amazing, I think she was in town for another part, and we just lucked into getting her in for an audition, and she was the only one that could really stand up to Kaitlin. I think it was pretty immediate. I mean, Kaitlin knew it instantly, I think, but they had just such great chemistry. She could really give it back to Kaitlin.
She was the only person who wasn't playing like a teenage bitchy girl, because I don't want to watch that for more than 10 seconds. I hate that so much. She just came in and played it that she was just way too cool for me, and I loved it. It was great.
And then Tommy Barbuska, we wrote it with him in mind. I mean, when John and I were talking about the idea, there was one day we came in and John said, I got the kid. And I'm like, no, fuck that, I got the kid. And he said, it's the kid from the Peter Pan Geico commercial. And I'm like, no, it's the kid from Wet Hot American Summer. And it was the same kid we were talking about. So Tommy was, we definitely pushed him through instantly. We wrote it for him. And Jack was difficult because he was so cute, and we really didn't want a cute kid for the role.
Jack was my first choice, and these guys wanted a goofball, like a goofier looking sort of.
We wanted an ugly kid.
You wanted somebody like ugly with weird features, and I was like, this kid is so cute. You can make him say the worst things, and you'll just buy it because he's so cute. And he was just the best actor.
And
so I won.
Fox signed off on Jack because they're now going to do the prequel of 24, and he's going to play Jack Bauer, the young Kiefer Sutherland. So it's very synergistic.
How very CBS of them. And then, of course, Alba.
Oh, yeah, she was... there was never anyone else.
Alba was the first Alba we saw. We didn't have, because in the pilot she has 1 or 2 lines. So when we were auditioning her, we knew we needed a new scene. And John and I actually pulled a scene from something we'd written 10 years earlier. And we just changed the names to Mickey and Alba. And it was the scene where Mickey's drugging her to go out with her. And we had to reshoot it because when Fox got the tape, we were like, we can't hear the audition. You guys are laughing so hard. But Carla was a no-brainer. She nailed it.
I've loved watching the progression of these characters, but especially the Mick. Of course, she still is that girl that we saw in the pilot rummaging through the supermarket at her heart. But Kaitlin, what has it been like for you to kind of just add those ever so slight layers as the episodes have gone on?
Well, I just think that I always knew that those were going to be really important to just pepper in without hitting anybody over the head. But I think that you need that in order to buy all of the chaos and craziness and, ridiculous parenting tactics that she tries. You need those little moments of, for better or for worse, she likes them despite herself. I think it helps to have a really super cute little boy. And she's just like, oh, great,
Thank you.
I love him. No, I'm glad we hired you for so many reasons, yeah.
All right.
Scott. Thanks, you ruined my answer.
Sorry. Just got really excited. That was exciting.
I'm curious to know if you guys have gotten any feedback from the town of Greenwich, Connecticut, because I have a friend who grew up there, and she's like, damn it, it's spot on.
Yeah, I actually have. I've had a bunch of people come up to me and be like, I'm from Greenwich. This is so much fun. I love it. I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't even know why they're happy or what that means, but I'll take it.
Yeah, one of my best friends from college is from Greenwich, and he's always like, dude, you nailed it. And I'm like, that's great, because I've been there twice, and I know nothing about it.
What was the decision behind basing it off of a real town versus just making one up?
That just sounds silly.
Yeah.
No, because I think we wanted to do like this class dichotomy thing, and we just thought like we didn't want to set it in LA or on the West Coast, and so Greenwich jumped out as one of the wealthiest towns in America, and I went to college in Rhode Island, and I've been to Warwick, and so I thought playing those two off of each other would be fun.
Over the course of this first season, Scott and Kaitlin, they have really put you guys through hell. You have been covered in dust. I think they've used gallons of fake blood on you at this point, Scott. Which look took the longest when you were in the makeup chair to achieve?
Your face getting beaten, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of the makeup team that we have is fantastic because they generally are doing horror film makeup on my face.
On a comedy.
And I remember there was one. Actually, the episode we saw driving home, there was some prosthetics on both eyes, and I think I had gone in at 4 a.m. that morning and was sat in the makeup chair for a couple hours as these things were getting glued and then painted and then sunburnt and the whole thing. And we were shooting that scene in the car where Jack is driving, and we did like 4 or 5 takes, and then John came up on the final take, and he was like, he touches, when he has an idea that he knows is good, but he's going to pretend that he doesn't know, he touches the side of his face. And he comes up, and he's like, he comes up to the side of the car, he goes,
What?
He's like, maybe cry on this one. Can you cry? And I'm sitting there with glue in all of my eyes, and I'm like, yeah, give me a second here.
And everyone goes, "Oh, big actor boy needs a second." And then he started crying, and we're like, "Oh shit."
We should give him a second.
Scott cries more than any grown man I've ever met, though.
Yeah.
Outside of work.
My dad's a crier. Long line of criers. But it was funny because I start crying, and then immediately, someone from the makeup department comes over to do the touch-up, and she says, if you keep crying, that shit's going to fall off your face because, of course, it's water solvent. So
Talk to John.
Yeah, talk to John. He has to cry. But that was the longest makeup, and then some of it just sticks around. I have to wear nipple pads because I have nipples the size of a caterpillar nipple. And so when I
What?
isn't
Caterpillars have large nipples? Are they known for their...
What?
Yeah. Caterpillars have small nipples. Small animal. He knows.
This
he
has gone off
knows.
the
So why
rails,
would you
I
have to
think.
cover that up? It'd be barely noticeable.
Well, what happens is I have to wear pads to cover them through the T-shirt, and then when
They're
we do
prominent. They're tiny but prominent.
when we do a shirtless scene, my nipples are so raw by the end of the season that we actually have to put makeup around my nipples so you don't see the red marks. Guys, you got to stay with me here.
I'm complex
Trying,
show.
man.
Was that not the question?
I think she asked.
It is now. I love that this isn't your typical family comedy. You guys were able to get away with some pretty dark stuff, like the fact that Ben killed all those bunnies. Was there anything or any joke that you guys wanted to tell, but you had to tweak because it is still a network show, and you guys are used to FXX?
Without a doubt, the bunnies was the hardest thing to get through. There was originally, in that montage where he's killing the bunnies, there were 40 bunnies that he killed. And I think we got it down to 9. But originally it was Alba just winging bunny carcasses, and they would slide down a wall into a trash can. And yeah, no, Fox doesn't like animal cruelty.
Did you feel like you ever had to kind of dial back your It's Always Sunny's brains and be like, okay, wait, this is Fox?
I think it's just a different muscle, and we didn't do this show to do Always Sunny on network TV. We wanted to do a show that the entire family could watch. That's why there's so much physical comedy, because we know parents can watch this show with their kids, and their kids aren't going to get any of the jokes, but they'll see Scott get punched in the face and they'll laugh their asses off. That's important to us. But No, I don't. I think for the most part, we've just tried to do our own thing as best we can.
I know that the scripts have been really strong, but how often are you guys improvising on set?
It's a different animal than Sunny because on Sunny we improvise all the time, but it's 4 or 5 of us who are really comfortable with that. And this show, they're kids and they're not as comfortable. In fact, I see their eyes go. When I start to say different things, they're just like, what? So, yeah, I mean, I play around a lot when the cameras turn around and it's just on me, and I can play around when I'm in a scene with Scott or with Carla. But really, it's more scripted. It takes a little bit more work because I'll kind of go and have an idea of, I'll try that line, and then I'll have like a couple different things I want to say. And yeah, it's less improvising. It's because improvising implies the other person is also like just winging it with you. It's less of that and more just us kind of, I don't know, coming up with a bunch of different things to say and picking out the best one and editing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's tough. There's also no bigger fan of Scott MacArthur than Thomas Barbuska, the kid who plays Chip. Like, if Scott opens his mouth and it's not the line on the page, Tommy will double over and just howl. So it's a bit of a challenge, but in general, Dave and I just like to go to set with the script that we have, and we think, let's make the best version of this we can, and we're always down to try different things with Kaitlin, but we're just not funny enough to throw out like alt jokes on the spot and hope they all work. So it's more to cover up our shortcomings and insecurity than anything else.
There was a day the brothers were in the editing bay. Kaitlin was there, and I was doing a scene with Jack, the 7-year-old, and it was the episode where Mickey goes to the casino and Jimmy fights for the pepper grinder to take control of the house. And so in that episode, he's hiding Jack from Chip and Sabrina so that he can say, you lost the little boy, and now I get the pepper grinder to take over. And I was shooting the scene with Jack when I was going to put him in the laundry basket to hide him. And we would be doing the scene, and in the middle of the scene, Jack would just improvise a line because he's kind of listening, all the time, and he's kind of, he's a smart little kid. So we'd be doing the scene, and maybe the line would have been, I can't remember quite, but it would be like, okay, now Ben, I'm gonna put you in this laundry basket and you don't open your mouth. And he goes, what if a fly flies into my mouth? Which is not scripted. And I'm like,
which is great, by the way. And he was so stumped.
He ran circles around me. I mean, take after take, he was improvising.
Scott would just like break and be like, what? And then leave.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, you got a kid improvising with you.
Yeah, I really.
You just don't expect it.
It just destroyed me. It was embarrassing. The entire crew knew it. No one found more pleasure in it than Kaitlin. I could just hear her cackling behind the camera.
I was so proud of that little kid.
Well, it's also great, but sometimes like you're running behind and Jack starts improvising, you're just like, just say the fucking line, dude.
He does improvise his blocking, which is always very funny because he's almost like
it's like a wind-up toy.
Yeah, like a wind-up toy of the Tasmanian devil that just blew 15 lines of pixie sticks, and he just can't. You got to get him to stop right there, and he just.
And then he'll fall.
Yeah.
He'll always fall.
Oh my God, he fell
All the
inside a Suburban. He didn't fall out of the Suburban. Inside the Suburban, he fell. I've never seen someone fall inside of a car, but he did it.
It's a really talented cast. We're going to start to open it up for fan questions out there. So if you guys have any, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Hi, right down here.
The end of the season looks like it's going to change the whole dynamic of next season. Can you give us any clue as to how?
I mean, that house is toast, but I think we're excited just to switch things up a little bit, but we also don't want to leave Greenwich and we don't want to change the entire DNA of the show, but we also, we want to keep you guys guessing a little bit. Is that okay, or do you want to know a little more? I don't know. I don't want to give it away. 2, we just started writing and I have no idea. Yeah. If you guys have ideas, we'd love
How
that.
early in the season did you guys decide that you wanted to burn down the mansion?
I think it was always in the back of our minds for a later season, and then we were struggling to come up with an ending for the finale, and Nick Frankel, who's our manager and one of the producers on the show, just came in one day. He was like, just torch it and figure it out later. And we were like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Cool.
And now here we are, and we have no idea how to get out of this corner.
Last week I was at a Grateful Dead show, whatever. And so I was at this Grateful Dead show at the Hollywood Bowl. And there were a lot of fans of the Mick, and people were yelling out in the parking lot or something.
Drug addicts.
Drug addicts, just degenerates, 60-year-old degenerates. But I texted the brothers. I said, wow. I said, there are a lot of fans of the Mick here. And John immediately responded, great, ask them how the fucking season starts.
Do we have any more fan questions? Over here on the corner.
I just had another question. I saw your Instagram video for water bottle thing.
Yes.
Explain what exactly happened.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Can we give some context for the fans who haven't seen it?
She's so proud of this moment.
I'm so proud of this. Well, first of all, it was we just got, this was 2 days ago, right? Yeah, we did our season 2 publicity shoot a couple days ago, and the photographer was obsessed with throwing a half water bottle all the way up onto the rafters and having it stick up there and like land. Not stick, land in the right spot up there. And I was like, that's insane. He was like, I'm gonna teach you how to do it. You're gonna do it today. And I was like, I don't think so. And then I was like, well, I can play cornhole, so I can definitely make this happen. And he just kept making me practice. And then my manager videotaped it, and somebody was like, action. I was like, shut up. And then I did it. Oh, nothing's ever felt so good. It's on my Instagram page. You should go check it out.
I hadn't seen Kaitlin in 2 months, and I saw her, and I was like, hey, what's up? And she's like, did you see the water bottle thing yet? Did you see it?"
Look what I did.
Yeah.
Look what it's still up there.
Oh, wow.
Still up there, guys. Smashbox Studios.
Any other fan questions? Well, what I'm curious to know about is that, Kaitlin, you are a mom of 2 yourself. What has it been like for you to kind of play this character who really wants nothing to do with children when she first starts out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's real. Somebody asked me earlier today, is it hard to speak to them in that way when you're a mom? I'm like, no, it's hilarious. I love it. It's so fun. But it is hard. I have to kind of remind myself, like, in moments not to be so maternal or wanting to fix it for them. And I think I just have to kind of keep remembering, like, oh no, I think it's funny that he's miserable. Like, there's stuff like that. But it's easy. I like being a turd to them. It's fun.
When we sat down to meet with Kaitlin to convince her to do the show, I remember John and I walked out of that meeting, and she's such a great mom, and she's so in love with her kids, and she's so inherently maternal. Kaitlin Olson, the person that I remember we walked out and said, if we get her, this will work, because I think that's the magic of the show, that she doesn't care, and you have these little moments where it shines through.
Kaitlin and Scott, are there any things that you have on the Mick bucket list that you'd really like to see your characters do in season 2?
Scott wants to win a fight, and it will never happen.
Unless it's like a child.
Yeah,
I think it'd be
beat
funny.
Up women and children
Women
will
and
allow,
children,
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't want to win a fight. I just want to land a punch. There's a big difference.
Yeah, I'd like to win a fight with a man, maybe. That might be cool.
It's been really great, though, to see you guys get so physical with your comedy. Does that take extra time for you guys to film? Do you find yourself having to prep for that? Is there a lot of choreography?
I mean, the physical part is not just in fights or accidents, but like there's physical comedy kind of everywhere, you know? So that's always my favorite part. So no, I wouldn't say it takes extra time. We also have a really amazing stunt team. I like finally found a stunt woman who I trust and love, who's amazing at her job, but willing to like flail her limbs around and look ridiculous at the same time. So if there's stuff they won't let me do, I know that it will still look funny.
I'm sorry, do you not notice how much time it takes us to set up for all those gags?
No, I don't know. I don't come out of my trailer until I'm forced.
It takes a lot of time, but like, I mean, some of them take a lot of time. Like Kaitlin,
Well, like a car accident
Yeah,
stunt,
when,
yeah,
like,
but
when
that's a typical stunt time.
yeah, but it's important to us, and like, it's funny. Violence is funny, so
It's a big part of our show. I think
Yeah.
that that's something that sets us aside from other half-hour comedies on network too. Like we hear that from our stunt teams. Like, you guys are doing like movie stunts. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, that doesn't happen that often. So yeah, it's a big part of our show.
I want to point out too that in that stunt scene today where Kaitlin slams into the door and then runs over the busboy and then gets hit by the bike messenger, I think your stunt double, who's amazing, I think she only does the bike messenger. I'm pretty sure you do
the other
the
two are me.
door and steamrolling the busboy.
Thanks, guys.
Which I remember she hammered this busboy, and she just like popped up and she was like, that was so much fun. That was awesome.
There's an element of a paternal love from the brothers towards Kaitlin and I, in that Kaitlin did the entire run out of the restaurant, and when it's cut, these guys are, hey, you doing okay? Like, we got it, it's great. You know, are you feeling okay? Do you want water or something? You know, very much as a father would do to a daughter. When I do a stunt and get thrown into a urinal and break a rib, they're either A, not there, or B, they're like, you gotta fucking do it again. And just do it better. They walk away. Actually, one of the amazing things about Kaitlin's physical work on the show, to me, is whenever I know I have to do anything physical, I'll take like 20 minutes to do a bunch of push-ups and stretching and jumping jacks and like really get into it and really warmed up. And
you guys can see the results right up here.
Yeah, yeah, like a hard piece of cheese. And but Kaitlin, I'm always watching, and I'm thinking, like, I didn't see her warm up or stretch, and then just can drop in and do some weird contortion with her body, and it's funny and it's physical, and then it's like, it's always on the first take, and you know, pops up, and do you guys want another one? And I'm always kind of amazed by that, because that's not like it's just this effortless thing, which is pretty impressive.
Thanks. I grew up with Go-Go Gadget arms and legs, so.
I was going to say you're gangly, but it didn't feel appropriate.
I'm very gangly.
Yeah,
I think that is always Caitlin's note to her stunt double. She's like, what do you want me to do on this? And Caitlin's just like, limbs everywhere.
Flop all over the place.
But I think we're always, if you will, paternalistic towards Kaitlin, because every year on Always Sunny, Kaitlin would go to the hospital because of something she did. So like every time we do something, we're just like, I don't
think it's every year.
Several years.
Okay, like 6 years.
Kaitlin, if the Mick and Sweet D were to ever meet, what do you think would happen?
God, they would hate each other so much. I mean, they would hate each other.
What would go down? Please paint this picture.
Dee would be jealous of Mickey and try to prove herself. And Mickey would just laugh at her. They'd fight. Dee would lose. Mickey would be mad. I don't know.
Do you think
a lot of limbs, so many limbs.
It's funny, as you're saying that, I'm seeing a gentleman up in the top right corner orgasm. This isn't on live TV, right? Can we say stuff like that?
It is being recorded, but we're good. Would you ever want to have anyone from your It's Always Sunny family guest star on the Mick, perhaps your husband? Play a love interest?
Nah. He's got his own shit, you know? I think we've done our best to try and make this its own individual thing and not be compared. I think we were all pretty aware of the fact that we were going to be compared to Sunny in some way, and we just wanted to make sure that this was its own thing. I certainly wanted to make sure that this character was different from Dee. So maybe once we get further away from it, it might be fun, but nah.
I'm with you.
The first season was really, of course, about establishing this world, establishing these characters and the dynamics. I know, obviously, that the season 2 writers' room has just started, but what would you say is your overall goal for the second season?
I think, not that we want to top ourselves, because I think that sounds like we just sit around being like, how can we do bigger? But it really is just about, it all starts in the writer's room with just a bunch of really funny people sitting around a table trying to make each other laugh. And I think there's, you know, you can't help but try to top yourself in that regard. So we want to do things better than we already did. I don't know. What do you got?
Jesus. I wasn't holding the mic. I wasn't prepared. I think we want to go deeper with some characters. You know, we want to see where they came from a little bit more. Yeah, you know, we never try to top ourselves, but it's never big enough for us, that's for sure. So just keep doing our thing, and hopefully you guys like it. I don't know.
Scott, when you're in the writer's room, do you find yourself writing more for Jimmy, or do you focus on the other characters and let someone else speak to Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet. If anything, sometimes I try to default away from writing for Jimmy, because I think it's a trap to sit there and only view. I don't think that's why the guys have asked me to be in the writer's room, especially for this season.
It is.
There's been a real misunderstanding. Right in the middle of it.
God, it just, when I came up with the beer, it was, I'm just playing catch up. No, I mean, yes, there's an element of course that you you get protective of a character in some way because you start having a bizarre relationship with the character you're playing. But
It's the same gentleman masturbating up there.
I got it. Yeah. No, I do try to put on a separate hat a little bit because it's just more fun to try and take it as from an objective point of view and just really try and crank it up on the other characters. And
Yeah, I also think, like, in all seriousness, this was his first professional writing job, but he's a really, really talented writer, and that's why we hired him on this show in the first place. And he got the acting gig halfway through last season, so all the writers just knew him as Scott. And this year, when we have new writers, it's been so funny, like, seeing how deferential they are towards him in the writer's room, like, where they'll be pitching an idea, like, Mickey does this, and they'll turn to Scott, like, and then I guess you could do this if that's, like, something you'd be into or whatever.
yeah. And I have no idea what the fuck to say. I'm like, oh, sure, I don't know.
Kaitlin, I'm such a huge fan of your work. I think that you're so incredibly talented. Would you ever be interested in directing an episode of The Mick this season?
Yeah, I'm enough of a control freak to take that on also.
Sold. You're hired.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought about it last year too. I do not like doing things unless I know I'm going to be really good at it. Because I'm really hard on myself. So I think that I've definitely been kind of watching, and there's certain things directing-wise I think I'd be really good at, and certain things I'd be like, I got to learn more about how to do that. I don't know how to storyboard. But like, I feel like, yeah, I could figure that out, and yeah, yes. My answer is yes. I would love to do that. It would be a fun challenge.
Dave, John?
Are you asking
Thoughts?
us if we
Yes,
want to
I'm like,
direct,
can you-
or
can you
if
have-
we're cool
no,
with her
I'm saying,
directing?
can you-
I'm
are you
sure
cool
her
with her
agents
directing?
are on the phone to Fox right now, leveraging them. So thank you for that.
You are very welcome.
No, we fully support Kaitlin directing. I think Caitlin's just so good, and more than anything, Kaitlin cares so much and just wants everything to be as good as possible. And like, she's really a leader on our crew and our cast, and for her to be at the top of all that, yeah, of course we support that. Whatever she wants to do. And because we couldn't possibly say no, she'd fire us.
Well, unfortunately, we do have to wrap this up, but what I want to ask you guys, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience who has enjoyed this first season so much? Is there anything you want to tell them?
I'm just so grateful that we have such an amazing audience, and that, you know, such great numbers in season 1. So, you know, if you have been watching it and a fan, just thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in there with us while we figure it out.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, we really make the show that we all would want to watch, so the fact that other people share that twisted sentiment is awesome.
Encourage your fans to binge it. Thank you guys so much
Thank
for
you.
coming
Thank
right
you.
now. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much.
Thanks, guys.